Federal raid begins. President Trump's war on drug trafficking grows larger as he declares cartel groups unlawful combatants, unlocking wartime powers that reshape the battlefield on U.S. soil. At 5:18 a.m. in cold, quiet Minneapolis, a federal raid moved through the darkness as unmarked vehicles surrounded Judge Leila Mahad's office, a place presumed to be one of the safest buildings in Minnesota. Agents stepped out silently, frost breaking under their boots, and a battering ram shattered the reinforced door as family photos beside the American flag shook violently, symbols of an oath now shattered. Inside, FBI and DEA teams swept each room, their flashlights cutting through the blackness until a false wall revealed 6 kilograms of cocaine and 7 firearms stored in foam-lined cases. Deeper still, a dust-covered safe held $81 million in sealed cash. An unlocked phone on the desk displayed encrypted CJNG routes, commodity codes, and incoming shipment dates, exposing a betrayal crafted inside the judicial system itself. The deeper agents dug, the uglier the truth grew. Judge Mahad, a 49-year-old Somali American, had not been coerced. She had architected the network herself. Over 6 years, she funneled $61 million in physical cash, and another $118 million through 29 shell companies spanning Minnesota, Wisconsin, Panama, and Curacao, none selling products, none with employees, none with working phone numbers, yet each moving cartel money like a private banking system. This was not bribery. It was a manufactured parallel economy protected by a midnight working bank director, a police chief signing special access cargo forms, and a ring of silent approvals that allowed trucks to roll, shipments to disappear into warehouses, and cash to flow back south. Surveillance later captured Mahad entering a dark community center at 2:17 a.m., with 3 men, including Abdi Khalaf, wanted for armed robbery, staying only 17 minutes with no words recorded. No packages exchanged, only doors opening and closing like coded signals. Then came the worst discovery. She had been importing not goods, but men. Over 580 Somali nationals funneled through her channels, many with gang history, military scars, or violent records. Within 16 months, these recruits were linked to 57 shootings, 91 armed robberies, 9 overdose deaths, and 22 forced prostitution cases. One supermarket shooting left 2 elderly grandparents wounded, and one attacker was found carrying a PCA badge issued by a clinic that had billed Medicaid $1.7 million for fake services, money intended for senior citizens now fueling violence. The line between law and crime didn't blur. It was erased by someone wearing a judge's robe. As dawn rose, the investigation left the evidence rooms and became a real operation, Operation Northern Razor, mobilizing hundreds across Minnesota. For weeks, maps in the command center had been pinned with red dots, blue arrows, and circles marking warehouses, clinics, apartments, garages, and riverfront piers, ordinary places hiding cartel infrastructure shielded by paperwork, permits, and silence. Then at 4:03 a.m., every operative's phone buzzed with the same message: immediate attack. Over 100 federal and local units moved at once. At once, black SUVs slid across icy Minnesota streets, while tactical vans tucked themselves behind apartment buildings, and highway patrol units sealed off every exit as a Bell helicopter thundered above a line of warehouses near the river, its rotors scattering powder snow into the darkness. Just as the first major strike hit a former trucking depot in Brooklyn Park, an abandoned-looking structure with rusted signs hiding industrial packaging machines, barrels of cutting agents, and pallets of sealed boxes awaiting distribution. 2 men tried to escape between storage racks, but were brought down by K-9 teams, and on a metal desk agents found a shipping manifest listing medical supplies bound for a fake clinic. 20 miles south, another unit breached a converted church basement, where faint stained glass light met the chemical smell of narcotics, plastic tubs of pills, vacuum sealers, and cash-counting machines. A volunteer preparing morning coffee froze at the sight of armed agents, and behind another false wall, investigators discovered coded message logs coordinating nighttime handoffs. Burnsville brought the most violent resistance when 2 suspects burst from a garage, sprinting across snowy yards, with nothing but fear driving them, one vaulting a fence, only to be trapped by a drone that held him in a glowing crosshair until agents closed in and cuffed him in the frozen grass. By noon, 27 sites had fallen, More than 200 kilograms of narcotics recovered. Cash pulled from ceiling vents and floorboards. Laptops filled with routing data seized. Appointment books linking officials, many already resigned, matching the cartel's calendar. Shock rippled across Minnesota faster than breaking news, as cities from Duluth to Rochester awoke to police tape hanging from familiar buildings, helicopters circling above schools and shopping centers, and unmarked trucks hauling evidence from places long trusted by the public. This was not a foreign invasion, it was the purge of corruption thriving in daylight. Operation Northern Razor didn't end the war, but it carved through the first layer, revealing how deep the infection truly ran. The raid's echoes rolled into government offices, businesses, and neighborhoods that had never imagined cartel influence operating beside them. As agents processed evidence, what once looked like scattered addresses formed a single machine, a system converting drugs into money, money into influence, and influence into protection. Inside the command center, wall-to-wall boards filled with photos of seized documents, notarized letters, bank wires, fake purchase orders, and quietly approved permits showed a pattern. Trafficking did not hide in shadows, it hid in paperwork. Ledgers showed regular payments disguised as facility fees or security consulting, including a $32,000 monthly transfer for nearly 2 years to a Hennepin County police captain and an $11,500 payout tied to a zoning decision, enabling a warehouse later exposed as a repackaging hub. Emails between Judge Leila Mahad and a bank director were alarmingly direct: clear the transfer, no delay, and money moved within hours. A sheriff's department received donation funds that perfectly matched a sudden drop in traffic stops along a key trucking corridor. A 12-minute city council meeting approved 6 warehouse leases, all owned by Somali surname shell companies with 0 employees. Panic erupted inside government buildings as officials locked doors, deleted emails, or shredded paper, but digital trails had already been secured, and federal analysts worked non-stop reconstructing timelines, turning once respected names into red dots on investigative maps. Outside, the public felt something heavier than anger, disbelief. Minnesotans who had trusted badges, permits, bank counters, and community leaders now learned those same people helped funnel narcotics into neighborhoods. Seniors at a community center stared at TV screens, showing that the church they'd passed for decades was a distribution hub. Protesters gathered outside courthouses holding signs reading, "If the law is criminal, what justice remains?" And, "Who were we trusting?" Some officials defended themselves, claiming confusion or federal overreach, but evidence mounted too quickly. Emails aligned with shipments, permits aligned with payments, case dismissals aligned with cartel transport schedules. This wasn't accidental corruption, it was an engineered system. A police union issued a short, trembling statement as the realization spread that the rot wasn't on the margins, it was built into the structure itself. The police union issued a short, trembling statement. "The actions of certain individuals do not reflect the values of this department." But the words did nothing to calm the public, who demanded answers, resignations, and accountability, as Judge Leila Mahad sat silent in her detention cell, refusing a lawyer, refusing to ask about charges, staring at a blank wall with the same hands that once signed court orders now resting in handcuffs, a living symbol of how a system had allowed her to thrive. In the days following the raids, Minnesota did not settle into calm. It plunged into a blizzard of paperwork, interrogations, frozen accounts, seized devices, and a mountain of evidence that even seasoned analysts struggled to process, as the case expanded from 6 kilograms of cocaine in a judge's office to one of the largest corruption investigations in state history, with narcotics totals exceeding 240 kilograms in currency, gold coins, cashier's checks, and prepaid cards piling up until counting machines rattled non-stop, ultimately producing a seizure value of $154.9 million, much of it hidden in ceiling vents, a hollowed water heater, and even inside a child's toy house in a suburban basement. Yet the most devastating discoveries were not the drugs or the money, they were the names in the ledger. A county procurement officer, a health clinic manager, a former sheriff's deputy, 2 accountants, a church treasurer. Ordinary people who did not resist when arrested. Some cried, some stared blankly, one whispered, "I thought everybody knew," before asking for a lawyer. Federal prosecutors charged 137 individuals tied to the network, not all for trafficking but for falsifying documents, authorizing payments, or signing approvals they knew were wrong, each charge representing a fracture in public trust. The consequences echoed across daily life. Municipal offices fell silent as employees were suspended, emergency elections replaced resigned council members, a small-town bank locked its doors after its director was indicted, and school board meetings turned volatile as parents questioned safety near bus stops recently used for secret drug handoffs. Elderly residents, whose medical care had allegedly been billed through fake PCA services, stared at statements in disbelief, realizing money meant for their health had fed a cartel economy. Families whispered in grocery store parking lots that they no longer knew who to trust. One Minneapolis resident, after 40 years in the city, began leaving his porch light on all night. The state scrambled to stabilize with task forces and hotlines, while prosecutors warned at a press conference, "This investigation is only at the beginning, more arrests will come," standing before rows of evidence bags labeled with names that once represented authority. Meanwhile, Judge Leila Mahad's empty courtroom sat untouched, polished bench, upright flags, nameplate undisturbed, yet no one could walk inside without feeling the contradiction between the dignity of the room and the corruption now exposed behind it. The public learned a painful truth. Drugs do not enter a city on their own, they move through permissions, approvals, and silence. And wherever trust bends, damage begins. The dramatic images, cash piles, guns, cocaine bricks, seized maps, officials in cuffs were unforgettable. But the deeper wound was the collapse of trust itself, because communities function not on paper laws but on belief. Belief that judges uphold justice, that police protect, that officials use tax dollars for the public good. When that belief breaks, poison spreads not through trucks or warehouses, but through minds. In the weeks after the arrests, older residents gathered in coffee shops and church basements, speaking softly, many having spent decades building lives in Minnesota, raising children, burying spouses, believing in the stability of their community, only to see headlines about falsified medical services, bribes, and violence carried out by men welcomed as newcomers, leaving them feeling betrayed 3 times by the criminals, by the system that enabled them, and by the officials meant to defend that system. What began as a drug case had become something far larger, a profound reckoning with the fragility of trust. Deeper still, this story became a lesson about institutions and the special kind of harm that occurs when those entrusted with power turn that power against the people. Because while crime in the streets frightens families, crime in the courthouse shakes faith in the very meaning of justice. And though a city can replace a broken window or close a dangerous alley, it is far harder to repair belief. Yet, through the fear and anger, another truth emerged. The system did not collapse in silence, it fought back. Agents worked before dawn, analysts traced every dollar, and witnesses chose to speak, even when it was painful, like the retired street pool nurse who carried 3 years of suspicious records into a federal office because something in her gut felt wrong, or the young police officer who refused a gift envelope and instead filed a report, or the bank clerk who printed transaction histories at midnight, with tears running down her face because she could no longer accept what she was seeing. That courage mattered, because Operation Northern Razor was not born from one agency's decision to act, but from ordinary citizens who refused to close their eyes. They noticed, questioned, spoke, and every voice, every small refusal became a brick in a wall against corruption. The raids, the arrests, the seizures were only the visible tip of a conflict that had begun long before the first battering ram hit a door. In the end, Judge Leila Mahad sat in a federal holding cell in silence, not denying, not shouting, simply lowering her head as though she finally understood the weight of the machine she had helped construct. And when a reporter outside asked an agent, "Is this the end?" he paused before saying, "No, this is the beginning. The system is still worth fighting for, because justice is not a building, or a bench, or a title. It is a promise kept alive only when people choose to protect it." When the raids ended and the headlines began to cool, a deeper, heavier silence settled over Minnesota. Not peace, but the silence after a storm, when people step outside, see the broken pieces, and wonder how long the damage had been growing right before their eyes. Families watched the evening news in disbelief. 26 dirty cops, more than 100 arrests, hundreds of kilograms of narcotics, over $150 million seized. Yet the true cost was not the cocaine, bricks, or the cash. But the trust that had been shattered. For years, Judge Mahad walked into a courtroom wearing a robe meant to symbolize fairness and protection, standing beneath the American flag, and that oath became a disguise behind which signatures were traded, doors were opened, and routes were cleared for shipments that poisoned communities from Minneapolis to Rochester. This wasn't a mistake or misunderstanding, but a carefully engineered system built with paperwork instead of bullets, approvals instead of shootouts, silence instead of explosions. In the days after the raid, the political fallout began. County boards in emergency session, state legislators demanding explanations, police unions repeating that the guilty individuals do not reflect the department, but the public did not calm. Protesters in freezing air held signs that read, "If the law is criminal, what justice remains? And who protects us when protectors fail?" Reporters demanded numbers describing how deep the network reached, and the inability to give an answer frightened people more than the drugs ever had. This case became more than narcotics, it became a warning. Because institutional collapse is almost never sudden. It begins slowly, with one ignored complaint, one approval signed without questions, one official looking away because it is easier, corruption slipping in not with a gun but with a smile, attending community dinners, shaking hands, praising public service, hiding itself in budgets, donations, and sealed envelopes. That is why this breach cut so deeply. It was not foreign invaders but trusted professionals who used their power against the people they were meant to protect. Yet through that darkness, the same truth resurfaced. The system did not fall quietly. It fought back with agents working before dawn, analysts tracing every transaction, and ordinary citizens refusing to stay silent. The nurse keeping her records, the young officer refusing the envelope, the bank clerk printing the evidence with tears in her eyes, small acts of courage that formed the invisible foundation of Operation Northern Razor. In the end, Judge Mahad remained in her holding cell, head lowered under the weight of the structure she had helped build. And when a reporter again asked, "Is this the end?" the agent gave the same answer. "No, this is the beginning. The system is still worth fighting for." If you believe that, too, hit like so this story reaches more people, and comment justice below, because this fight continues.